Bass all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
Radio Hall of Fame Basketball. The first NBA radio for all the fans around the world. Radio Hall of Fame Basketball. We talk about NBA. We talk about passion. We are your radio.
Right? It's some of your decision. Maybe they don't understand why you make that decision. Like when you left Celtics, then people said, why Ray wants to go to Miami? And then also there's since we're in Shanghai, and you and Paul Pierce is like the hot topic of this whole game, right? And then can you just let me know what is the relationship between you and Paul right now? I think you guys have really having a good time this morning, right?
Yeah, we seen each other this morning. I haven't had any issue with anybody, and I never have issue with people. It's never personal with me. When you sign up to play anything in any professional sport, we're playing a game, and that ultimately is what can't be lost sight of. It was the situations that all of us were in. We were kind of brought there and put in this great situation, and if it's not taken care of, then you kind of lose it. You take it for granted, you lose it. And you know, my decision, it's tough for the fans to understand, you know, people who were in Boston, because for me those were the hardest people to have to leave. Those are the greatest fans I played in front of. With no disrespect to any other fan, just the difference, you know, the way they support the team home and on the road, and the way they followed the game. It was just a different element. But there's so much that goes on behind the scenes with teams, and the players understand it, and the organizations understand it. But when I left, what you know is that everybody on one side is going to say everything that they need to say to make their side look like they did everything that they could to make sure that they made it correct for me. But you know, from my opinion, I see something totally different. As well as, you know, any player that was traded or moved on, like, you have your issues, you have your beefs that you have, and it's up to a team to make sure that they, in a free agency period, make sure that they take care of whatever issues that you may have. So if a team doesn't do that, then you have to make sure that you find the best situation that's available. And that was probably the hardest, one of the hardest decisions that I had to make, because I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to have to, but the team almost put me in a bad situation, and so I ended up being where you know, it wasn't that it at the end of the day it ended up being Miami or Boston. It just ended up being Miami or Boston that I was no longer going to be playing for, the way free agency went at that time, which was sad to me, and it was sad to my family, because we're New Englanders. We live in Connecticut. We never wanted to leave. So when I realized that they weren't doing me any favors as far as keeping me and, you know, giving me any protections or guarantees of what was going forward, we knew it was time for us to move on. And that's the thing about sports. You just move on. You just have to move on, because teams do the exact same thing. When a team feels like you can't help them win anymore, they trade you. And they trade you and try and figure out how they could leverage you for their future, for somebody younger, for multiple pieces. When teams do it, everybody says it's a business. When I did it, I was disloyal, and I was a traitor, and I did all these things. And you know, I always wanted to say that I loved where I was. If the team did what they needed to do to keep me, I still would have been there. But they didn't, and once I had to move, it was time to go. And so I had to, you know, amongst the options that I had available, I made the choice to go to the best option that was going to allow me to win the championship, and it worked out 100%. the way I had hoped it would work out. Miami wasn't, apples and oranges. It wasn't great. We had a lot of things that we had to work through and deal with, and we always say the grass isn't green on the other side, but I know my work, and I know what I need to do every single day to be ready and be prepared, and ultimately, that's what I had to do. And I was put in a situation where I had to, long term, I had to help win this team a championship, and it worked out. And so now I have 2 rings, and I'm proud of both of them for the work that I put in. And I don't regret anything, because everything that we do, it puts us where we are. And I've learned a lot. And again, it was always my cross to bear. When something negative happened, I just had to deal with it and move on.
So it's like the water under the bridge between you and maybe Paul, or does it?
Well, that's a conversation that has to be, had with Paul, because if you remember, I haven't said anything negative about those guys in the last 4 years that I've been, for more than 4. It's been 10. How long has it been? It's been 5 or 6 years since I've been gone. It seems like it was a year or 2 ago. So I don't have any ill will. When I left, I was a free agent. So I haven't, it's disheartening when you hear things negatively that people say about you, because when you win, you're in love, like you love each other, and the families are in close-knit proximity at all times. So for me, I've never had, I didn't look, we won together. When you win together, you always share that bond, and that to me has never changed. It's just you have to, each person to a man knows that in the NBA it's such a business that when they can't use us anymore, then they trade us off or they cut us. And multiple people in the league, if you ask anybody who's been traded or cut, will tell you, hey, I couldn't serve them anymore, they got rid of me. And we've seen it evident with Isaiah Thomas just this past week. There's no loyalty in sports. It's not about loyalty. It's about a business. Each side has to do what's better for each side.
Even you're such an old school person, but you don't think there's some loyalty in the basketball or in the NBA? I mean, in the NBA.
Yeah, no, there's no loyalty at all. It's not. It's always, what have you done for me lately? And a team will tell you that a certain player is not tradable, but we used to always say that anybody can be traded for anybody. Because if you take the best player in the league and trade him for 2 of the best players in the league, the other team is going to say, we'll take the 2 over just the 1. So it's easy and it sounds good to say for teams or organizations, but they'll trade anybody if a good deal is put on the table. You can't, any GM, they think about the PR behind it, but at the end of the day, they're going to say, well, this is going to make our team good for a long run, and we possibly can win a championship this year. So saying loyalty to a person is not relevant, because we as players, the best we're going to do is a 15-year career, in some cases 20-year career, and the organization has to think about long-term where they can go from you. You look at Kobe, he played in L.A. his whole life, but towards the end of his career, they had to start thinking about basketball after Kobe. So it's just the nature of the game. We can't play forever, but organizations always have to think about, how to move on from that franchise player that you've had a decade or so. It's just a tough situation, and we know as players, it's not personal. They just have to do what they have to do. So when I sign a contract somewhere else, you should not be mad at me just the same.
Face all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
Radio Hall of Fame Basketball. The first NBA radio for all the fans around the world. Radio Hall of Fame Basketball. We talk about NBA. We talk about passion. We are your radio.
Question. Now, I know you've
Congratulations, brother.
I appreciate it. I know you've been playing some ball down there in Florida with some of my guys at Gulliver Prep. Why aren't you still playing, man?
You know it.
You know how it is, T-Mac. You get towards the end of your career, there's so much more red tape than anything. Moving your family, finding the right situation, the right coach. I think most of the inquiries that I've received were, how easily ready am I to accept my role as a vet and sit on the bench and mentoring the young guys. And I love to do that. It comes natural for me, but I do want to play. I wanted to be able to come out on the floor and earn whatever minutes I may have gotten. So I didn't know if that was possible. And so I just said, I didn't want to be sitting on the team. And I said, what did I get myself into?
Do you miss it, Ray?
Of course. Watching games. Last night I was watching the guys over at Terminal 23, and they had a great practice. The intensity was crazy. They were competing, and I just felt like I could be out there. Even the day before when I watched them practice, they weren't as intense and competitive. And I told them later on the night, I said, you guys didn't play your hardest. I said, you got these scouts watching, you got so much going on, and you guys are just kind of playing 50%. And it's like that moment you want to step out and just show them what playing hard is like every single moment. I told them your effort should never be compromised, or at the door you walk in, it's always you got to bring that effort. So I certainly miss it.
See, I love that, though. Even though you're not in the day-to-day NBA game, you're still getting your taste of it here or there. Although, I got to say, watching today's game, when you see the freedom that guys like Steph Curry have to shoot, do you almost wish you were playing in this era where it was sort of the ultimate green light for any three-point shooter?
Well, it's interesting. It's fun to watch because it's not just Golden State. It's not just Cleveland. You see Toronto playing that way. You see Phoenix playing that way. You see Milwaukee playing that way. So many more teams playing that way. When I played in Milwaukee, we played that way, but we always got criticized because they said small ball couldn't win. We needed a big guy. And we were more untraditional back there in the 90s. So we've evolved into that because the three-point line has become a huge premium. So many bigs shoot the three now. So the game is certainly involved, and I don't know if it's going through a cycle where it'll go back where you see some dominant big men on the post and you start feeding the post a little bit more, but I do envy it. It looks fun. I know definitely I could play in it, but it's just you just got to marvel at it for what it is, because T-Mac certainly could play in it today as well. Right, T-Mac?
Absolutely.
I like that there's no animosity between the two of you, considering Ray snatched the ring off your finger with that shot in 2013. And
wow, you got to bring that up. Look at them. These two guys are having a lovely conversation, and you
and I'm surprised it was lovely.
Shots fired. Shots fired. Shots fired.
That happens a lot on this show, right?
I will say, I will say this. We're down Game 6, T-Mac, and I'm running down the floor. And I look over to the right, and I think you guys were up 6 or 8 points. And I look to the right, and you jumped, you were cheering, you were going up and down, and everybody was celebrating. I was like, oh no, this cannot happen like this. And it was always ingrained in my mind like that.
So he's the one.
I was glad I was able to.
He is responsible.
I'm responsible for that shot.
Now, Ray, you know that's not true. You were angry at the security guards who were coming out and bringing that rope. I've never seen you more angry on a court than the people with the tape. So let me ask you this.
Honestly, yes.
So let me ask you this. You played both against playoff LeBron and with playoff LeBron. What is the difference between regular season LeBron and playoff LeBron?
Well, playoff LeBron gave us, I think it was 45 in Game 6 in Boston, and there's a greater sense of focus. You can see, how he just kind of streamlines his game. And I think for most of us that have won at a high level, won a championship, down the stretch, especially as you get older, you kind of manage your body a little bit better in the playoffs, and you're able to kind of slow down a little bit, and you're not so helter-skelter with the schedule and going from one team to the next. You can kind of zone in on that one opponent, and you can see your mistakes. We know all the plays from the other team, so I love playoff basketball. It just gives you that opportunity to just kind of slow down, and gives you that kind of that NFL schedule where you're going to be home, or at least go to one city and then come right back. So I definitely believe he cherishes those moments because, it does take a lot of toll off his body at that time of the year.
Face all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
Radio Hall of Fame Basketball. The first NBA radio for all the fans around the world. Radio Hall of Fame Basketball. We talk about NBA. We talk about passion. We are your radio.
Answers. It's that infinite curiosity to want to be better, to figure things out. Mamba mentality is, you're going, you're competing. You're not worried about the end result. You're not worried about what people may say. You're not worried about disappointing others. You're not worried about any of that. You're just focused on being in the moment. That's what Mamba mentality truly is. With the Mamba mentality, color is a good visual representation that connects certain emotions. I try to look at 5 attributes that you need to improve and to propel yourself forward. It's an understanding of, do you see yourself through this color? How do you interpret this color? And it may be different for everyone. And I think that's what's important for us to do color theory. Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, LeBron James. They just have a constant curiosity about learning the game, about figuring the game out, and how can they take the game to another level. Their constant quest to improve is true embodiment of Mamba mentality. The most important thing is to have that thirst for knowledge and that thirst to get better.